Young Americans and other ignoramuses seem to be moving to the political left. A new poll shows that 62% of Americans aged 18 to 29 now hold a favorable view of socialism, and the percentage is even higher among 18 to 29-year-olds who wear rings in their noses because they couldn't locate their ears. In on-the-street interviews with young people or just people with enough tattoos to qualify as glitches in the evolutionary progress of humankind, the subjects interviewed gave various reasons for their leftward shift. For instance, one young man named Sketchy Boardslide told a reporter, quote, "I believe in socialism because if you ran a metal wire into my left ear, it would come out of my right ear without touching anything in between. As a result, I'm so shallow that my shallowness goes down very deep," a sentence that doesn't even make any sense, which should give you some idea of just how incredibly stupid I am. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to guide my battery-powered skateboard to a voting booth in order to help elect someone who will destroy every vestige of what good men hold dear, whatever a vestige is. Bye, Felicia." Unquote. A woman we interviewed, who is either between 18 and 29 years old or just so ignorant it's hard to tell the difference, told our reporter, quote, "When I look at all the inequality and suffering in the world, I care so much it really makes me feel good about what a warm-hearted person I am. Believing in socialism is a way for me to express the precious tenderness of my heart without actually having to do anything for anybody, because that would take time away from making videos about opening boxes of cosmetics while pouting with surgically modified lips so big they look like a cross between a gravy boat and some unidentifiable kind of roadkill. If I vote socialist, everyone will admire my compassionate nature until the country collapses in a catastrophe of poverty and oppression and is overrun by barbarians, so that I become part of some savage's harem, which has been a big fantasy of mine ever since I read a novel in which all the men had bat wings and did rough sex with women who were beautiful, fragile fairies, but really strong in some kind of magical way." Unquote. Pollsters have found that the move towards socialism among young people and other dunderheads has opened up a gender gap between women who make good money and are completely miserable and men who scratch their armpits in public and are working on developing an organizational chart of the Marvel Comics universe. Some psychologists say the divide may be caused by sex differences that have been socially constructed in every society that has ever existed and ever will until the end of time. For instance, studies show that young women experience higher levels of anxiety and stronger feelings of vulnerability, while young men are far more likely to chase women down the street, shouting, "Hey baby, give me some of that hot stuff," the way they do it in diverse sex traits that some scientists believe may be mysteriously connected. One gender scientist, Dr. Bartholomew Creepy, says these sex differences, which are not at all innate but simply socially constructed everywhere, always, and forever, may give clues to why young women are increasingly socialist, while young men believe Spider-Man is actually a real person, but you never see him because we don't live in his section of the multiverse. In a speech to a convention of middle-aged men who subscribe to Teen Vogue for some reason, Dr. Creepy said, quote, "Young women have been shown to exhibit higher levels of agreeableness and tender-heartedness, which are conducive to socialism when combined with their almost total inability to reason. I hope to deliver deeper insights into this phenomenon in my latest study of young women, with its focus on their uncannily smooth and shapely legs." Unquote. Older people, conservatives, and anyone else with a lick of sense are hoping to avoid the consequences of the leftward trend among the young by praying for death to mercifully carry them away before the next election. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we're back laughing our way through the absurd days of August. I've had some nice news this week I wanted to pass on. My new Cameron winter mystery, After That, The Dark, which comes out in October, got a starred view in Publishers Weekly, which is the main publishing trade magazine for booksellers and reviewers and so on. And they called the book brilliant. So this is the book you should pre-order. If you do pre-order it, I'm really grateful for pre-orders because they could help the book get on the Times list, which would just be hilarious and would be great for the series and keep the series going. We have a new DailyWire landing page where you can do this. You go to dailywire.com/Klavan, dailywire.com/Klavan, and then you can order from Amazon or anyone else you want, and all of those help the sales and the perception of the book in the publishing industry, which is just great. And again, I think this is the best book in the series by far, and I think you can start here and then go back and read the series from the beginning, so it's not something you have to worry about. Also, you want to leave a comment if you are, no matter where you're watching the show or listening to the show, if you're, watching it on YouTube or Daily Wire Plus, or it's just somehow feeding into your imagination through some mysterious means, leave a comment wherever you are. And if that comment is racist and sexist and just absolutely morally reprehensible, we will read it on the air because it will fit right in with the rest of our content. Today's comment is from Daring Eric, who said, "It's a good thing that the Trump happiness montage is no longer being played on this podcast. It's very clear that the joke has run its course." And I know I've been joking about this like ceaselessly, but we actually have gotten rid of the Trump happiness montage forever. And I knew that people were going to be upset about this. I knew they'd bother me if I actually stopped playing it. So instead, I have made a different montage that will hopefully, fill in the gap until we're ready to just let these things go. So let's play this new different montage as cut number one.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay. My, oh my. What a wonderful day.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. Yay! You'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay.
We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
All right, that'll freshen things up and we can get right into today's episode, White Girl Summer. So August is here, and I'm reminded how early on when the Daily Wire was just getting started, getting underway, it may have been our first August, one of the investors called Jeremy Boring, the God King of the Daily Wire, and complained, was really angry about it because I had gone on the air and said that some desperately important political event was not important at all and would be forgotten within three days. And he was furious. How could he say this about this desperately important thing? And blah, 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 blah. And Jeremy handled a lot of calls like this for me. And I said on the air that it just seemed important because it was summer and nothing else was happening, and people try to keep your interest up during the summer when the Congress is out of session and not too much is going on. Sometimes there's some kind of breaking news that's really important, but most of the time it's just news people trying to keep you interested over the summer when nothing is really going on. And that's what I said it was. What the event was, I can no longer remember because within 3 days everyone had completely forgotten it. So this is that time. This is that time in August when everybody's getting super excited over things that you don't really have to get super excited about. Like I said, there are exceptions, but most of the time things are pretty quiet. So here at the Andrew Klavan Show, we do not get distracted because, as you know, we're on a mission from God. So I want to continue to talk about what we've been talking about, which is, I think, the really important news and the news behind the news, which is the war for the American mind. Do you find yourself tossing and turning all night, constantly flipping your pillow to find the cool side? If you or your partner are hot sleepers, summer nights can become a battle between exhaustion and overheating. That restless cycle of too hot, too cold, never quite right can leave you longing for the cool, comfortable sleep you deserve this summer. With Boll Branch's best-selling percale sheets, you'll finally get the cool sleep you've been craving. These aren't just any ordinary sheets. They're crafted with a special cooling weave using the finest 100% organic cotton that feels crisp and breathable against your skin. Even if you are the sweatiest sleeper in the house, you'll stay comfortably cool all night long. Plus, they get softer and softer with every wash instead of wearing down like other generic sheets. And here's the best part. You can try them risk-free with their 30-night guarantee. I am a hot sleeper, and like I say, I never sleep. I'm awake all the time, so I can feel the pillow. I constantly turning it over. You will love these sheets. I use them every night. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep can make with Boll Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/Klavan. That's Boll Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/Klavan to save 15% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. One thing, you have to know how to spell Klavan. It's fine to know how to spell Boll Branch, but Klavan is Klavan. Chapter 1, Fair's Fair. Last week, I made a joke that I was going to become a Nazi so that Sydney Sweeney would like me. And that, of course, is absolutely true. I spent this week, getting into my Nazi. I sent away, for mail-in order armbands and everything. And then I uncovered in the records my Jewish roots, and then I hid in a closet while I searched for myself throughout the house. The whole thing was kind of confusing, actually. But I didn't want to really get too involved in all the silliness over Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle jeans ad because it's falling into an old conservative pattern, which goes kind of like this. It's something perfectly normal happens that nobody's thinking about at all, like a hot girl is used to sell jeans. And here's the ad. I was giving you its 30-second ad as cut to.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has very jeans.
You see what I did there, right?
All right. So something totally normal, good-looking actress, very popular actress, a good actress, actually, comes on and sells the jeans. And then some mentally ill women go on TikTok and start screaming about it, that somehow because they said good genes, right, which is a little bit of a pun. She has good genes because she's very beautiful, that she inherited beauty, and she's got good genes because she's wearing good jeans. So some clearly mentally ill women go on TikTok and say, oh my God, this is a terrible, offense against humanity. Here's just a few of them. This is cut 3.
You guys are complaining about that Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, so I went and saw it. That's Nazi propaganda. Wow. I thought it was going to be kind of bad. That's going to be in history book.
I will be the friend that's too woke because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird. Fascist weird. Nazi propaganda weird. Would we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's still really shocking. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes.
So, the women, in case you're listening and not watching, they're all slightly less attractive than Sydney Sweeney. They have rings in their noses and all the usual stuff. So then the right rips into them and starts to mock them and make fun of them, and that becomes the news story. So now it becomes a news story. Most of the people on the left on this one are saying, this is ridiculous, but this gives the left the high ground because it lets them set the terms of the discussion, what is going to be a discussion. We let them, these crazy, few women on TikTok, bring this into the news, and then we can only lose the argument because even arguing about it admits that there's something to argue about, and before we know it, we're saying things like, well, we're not being exclusive. We like all kinds of women, beautiful women, and all this stuff. But we're essentially making excuses for ourselves, and we basically see the point. So, just to give you an example, American Eagle didn't pull the ad, so good for them. They weren't intimidated. They understood that the vibe has shifted, as we now say. But their response was kind of mealy-mouthed. They said, Sydney Sweeney has great genes, is and always was about the genes, Jeans. Her genes, her story will continue to celebrate how everyone wears their AE jeans with confidence, their way. Great jeans look good on everyone. So in other words, they're apologizing without apologizing. And that's the way these things always go. So, my feeling is why not just say nothing or say, hey, you don't like the ad, don't buy our jeans. But we like the ad. We thought it was pretty good. So I'm a little odd. You may find I find that I am personally, not to give you too much information, but I'm personally attracted to beautiful blonde girls with spectacular figures. And I know you're thinking, what's that about? Is that some kind of fetish? But this has been my life. I've fallen in love. Whenever I fell in love with like an actress, you get these crushes on actresses. It's always the first one as a kid. Grace Kelly. I just loved Grace Kelly. Peggy Lipton on the Mod Squad, and then Gwyneth Paltrow, who looks exactly like Peggy Lipton on the Mod Squad. And then my wife, who I abducted as she was hitchhiking, and I abducted her and forced her to bear my children. I still haven't let go of the poor woman. And so, like, the idea here is that this is some kind of construct, it's some kind of American thing that we do, or Western thing that we do. Constance Grady, a writer for Vox, wrote an article saying that the blonde bombshell goes back to Jean Harlow in Hollywood, but the idea of blondes being attractive goes way back further than that. The word fair, F-A-I-R, comes from a German root meaning beautiful, appealing, and of course it means all the things that are beautiful and appealing, like being fair, being, making sure everybody's treated fairly. But it also means being beautiful. My love is fair. How fair my love is. That means beautiful. But it also means light. She's fair. She has fair hair. She has light skin. She's blonde. So fair is beautiful, and fair is also bright or light or white, in fact. And you can find the cliche being mocked in Shakespeare, all right? So now we're going back to the 16th century. You can find Shakespeare mocking the cliche of a beautiful girl being light-skinned. He wrote a famous sonnet called "My Mistress' Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun," which is just making fun of all the love poetry where you say, "Oh, my mistress' eyes my lover's eyes are so bright, they're like the sun." He says, "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips are red." So she doesn't have beautiful red lips. And he says, "If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun," meaning dull-colored, gray-colored. And he ends the sonnet by saying, "And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare." So in other words, you can compare all the women you want to have their rosy red lips, their white skin, their, whatever you want to say, her eyes are like the sun, but my love is more beautiful even though she has nothing like it. So it's very basic to Western literature to take cliched standards and turn them on their heads. This is a typical thing that happens in Western culture and has been happening for centuries. But this is different. See, Shakespeare is not attacking people's tastes. He's attacking the cliches, but he's not saying that light-skinned girls and blonde girls are not beautiful. He's saying that love makes women beautiful, which is, of course, true. And he's saying the girl he loves is different, and he's being actually positive and inclusive, which is what the left is always on about. But this is an assault, as always. It's an accusation that it's racist, it's Nazi. I love that one woman said this is going to be in the history books. It's not even going to be in the magazines in a week. So, it's like we're not supposed to be attracted to shapely, slender, blonde girls, but fat girls are supposed to be attractive. You remember those Cosmopolitan covers with truly obese, unhealthily obese women saying this is healthy, which I felt was like truly a sin that somebody could go to work and make that cover and say this, person who has a condition that could cause cancer, that could cause heart attacks, this is healthy. That's a horrible thing to do, a truly immoral thing to do. But we're being attacked for our poor values. They're horrified that Sydney Sweeney may be a registered Republican, that she was photographed having a barbecue with some of her relatives who were wearing MAGA hats and were supposed to be shocked. But it's like, it's not just like, girls are supposed to have white skin, how evil of you to say. It's like you are a bad person. Do you remember John Mayer? Does anybody remember John Mayer? He wrote some really good songs like Your Body is a Wonderland, Waiting for the World to Change. These were hit songs. And one day he gave an interview to Playboy. He was a lover. He was a player. He was out making love to all kinds of women. And in the interview, he used the N-word in a descriptive sense, not as a vile attack on somebody, but he used it describing the word as people do. But he basically said, cleaning up what he said a little bit, that his penis was a white supremacist because he wasn't attracted to black girls. And the usual crap ensued, and like a fool, he was harried from pillar to post. And then like a fool, he apologized and he cried, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and he was finished. That was the end of him. He disappeared. I haven't seen him ever since. I mean, it's like you have to tell people like this to go to hell. You have to tell them to go to hell like J.K. Rowling did with the trans thugs. You have to just say, like, no, I'm not apologizing for any other thing. And if he'd done that, he'd still be singing hit songs. Because, Bill Whittle, my pal Bill Whittle always says that calling people racist only works against people who aren't racist because they're the only ones who get upset by it. They're the ones who start to cry and all that, and then the goblins eat them. So my question is, what gives these people the right to not to express their opinion, they're welcome to their opinion, but to monopolize the culture on pain of cancellation, to say that these are the only ways you can be, that you can't be Sydney Sweeney, that can't be good genes that make a woman look like that. By the way, I think she's actually a brunette. I think she dyes her hair, but never mind. But why should the people who hate the standards of the culture, this is a culture that was made by people who happen to be white, as I've said a million times. I don't think that's why the culture is the way it is, but they were white, and so it makes sense that their whiteness was going to be an object of beauty. Why should the standards that underlie the culture be subject to people who can't stand the culture? Why should they get to monopolize the culture that they hate and want to fundamentally transform, as Barack Obama said? When Stephen Colbert got fired, I thought this was a wonderful thing that he got fired. They had a demonstration in New York, like it was something to be protested, like 10 people showed up, but he had bad ratings. He had bad ratings because he alienated half the audience by only telling left-wing jokes and only attacking only attacking right-wingers and then welcoming left-wingers on his show and basically sucking up to them. So, why is he entitled? Why are left-wingers entitled to monopolize the media, especially when they hate the country, especially when they hate the culture? Why is that something that should be done? So I think, look, this has come to an end. With the election of Donald Trump, with the invention of new media, we have blown those people off the map. And now sides are forming to come and take back that territory of information and entertainment and culture. And so the question is, something's going to replace that monoculture, that leftist monoculture, but what? It could be something right-wing that's just as limited and just as censorious. But I would like to see free markets and free minds until we decide where we are as a country and are not told where we are as a country, but basically emanate the culture out of the people instead of having the culture dominate and bully the people into believing it. My feeling is, you want to be beautiful. If you're a different color than Sydney Sweeney, you want to be beautiful. Be beautiful. If I don't like you, if John Mayer doesn't want to sleep with you, leave him alone. Then that's his taste, and we'll find out who wins. I think the thing is, they're afraid they'll lose, so they want to bully us all the time into silence. Nobody has a right to be anything. Black people don't have a right to be president. Women don't have a right to be president. If you want to be president, you have to win the election, right? They ban white men now virtually from writing novels. I'm one of the few who are left writing novels, and young white men trying to get into the novel writing business are just having a hell of a time. Why? Because they think they'll do a better job. They'll do a better job, and they think that they need to be excised. This is not culture just emanating from the people. These are people in power imposing a culture on the people. Our imaginations didn't change. They were taken by force. They were silenced by force. And now we've taken them back. And I would like to see them not conquered, but set free. I pity the fool who sleeps on a Helix mattress because he doesn't get to feel how comfortable it is. It's so comfortable, you fall asleep and then you miss the whole thing. I don't have that problem because I'm bionic. I never sleep. And I just love a Helix mattress and stay up all night thinking, wow, this is really comfortable. One thing I've loved about my Helix mattress is how well it does with temperature regulation, which is really important. It eases some of those annoying middle of the night wake-ups, and it's just incredibly important during the summer. And it's also easy to connect the mattress to other wearable devices so you can actually see the data to back up your sleep improvements each night without questions. What makes Helix different is they don't just sell you a random mattress. They actually match you with the perfect one for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, a back sleeper, or a non-sleeper like myself, they have got you covered. All you have to do is take their sleep quiz and find your ideal match. And trust me, when you find the right match, you will wonder how you ever lay awake saying, what a comfortable mattress on any other mattress. Right now is actually the perfect time to upgrade your sleep because Helix is offering a fantastic Labor Day early access sale. Go to helixsleep.com/Klavan to get 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Klavan for 20% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after you check out so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/ and I know what you're thinking. How can I enter it if I don't know how to spell it? It's Klavan. Chapter 2, Red Tide. So what I said in my opening was true, that among Democrats, the left is rising, and especially among young Democrats, and especially among young women, they are saying that they find socialism, attractive. And it's happening at the same time the Democrats are becoming less popular. So it suggests that the people are not becoming socialists, but there is this movement among the youth and among the radicals to take over the Democrat Party. So in other words, it's the same kind of thing where a small number, the minority, are trying to take over the majority. The same kind of thing that was happening with the culture that happens when people attack Sydney Sweeney, when everybody is looking there and saying, wow, hot girl, I'll buy those jeans. That's basically what people are thinking. But by bringing the argument out and by calling us out into the field, they take control of the culture. And that's what's happening to the Democrat Party. And you're seeing it all over, but of course you're seeing it most obviously in Minneapolis, where this guy Omar Fattah is running for mayor of Minneapolis, and in New York, where Zoran Mamdani is making a big splash. And both of these guys are Muslim, and both of them are socialists, open socialists. And the lefties in the party are endorsing them. Some of the people in the party are holding back because they sense that the party is going away from the mainstream and possibly going to put itself into at least a decade of exile. But some of the more left-wing people are coming out. AOC, obviously, she's already identified as a socialist. Why shouldn't she endorse Zoran Mamdani? And Elizabeth Warren, who, by the way, knows better. She's smarter than this, but she's just trying to preserve her political career. She goes out and she's asked, is socialism the future of the Democrat Party? Here's the exchange, cut 5.
Progressive social. Is this what the party should look like?
Yes. You bet. The Democratic Party needs to stand up and be clear. We are the party that fights for affordability for working families. That means child care. That means housing. It means health care. It means making this country work better for the working people who make this country work.
All right, last question.
I get a little excited about this. Okay. All right.
So she's going all in, all that stuff she's saying, that is socialism. It never works. It hurts working people. What it does is it guts the middle class. It makes the unpowerful and the powerful, because all the money is being funneled through the government, which is, of course, what socialism is, and why it's, it's appealing to young people, because young people have an ideal of what the world should be. And especially in America, where young people are kind of woefully educated, they have an ideal of what the world should be, and the world doesn't live up to that ideal. The world is unfair. Life is unfair. But it's kind of like poker, okay? Let's say you play poker in a casino. Poker is unfair. Sometimes you can go all night and get crap cards. Some people have more talent playing poker than other people have, because it really is a game about money. And some people have the money and can bully you out of the games. It is unfair. But how much more unfair would it be if the casino decided who won? If the casino decided, well, just to make this fair, we're going to make sure that everybody wins the same amount, or that this guy who is more valuable because he's black or Muslim or whatever, he's going to win. Then you really have something that is viciously unfair. The unfairness of life is just built in, and it's not going away. It's never going away, ever. And so you just learn to live with that as you get older and as you get mature. Socialism is inherently anti-freedom, because in order to make people fair, you have to crush the top people into being as bad as the lowest people, because the lowest people cannot live up to the top people. I mean, I can't play, baseball like Aaron Judge, so you'd have to make Judge hit fewer home runs in order for him to be equal with me. And this is why ultimately, it becomes all about the taking away your freedom. The only freedoms socialists ever endorse are the freedoms that make you enslaved. Drugs, all the sex you want. You can cut your body up so you become a patient forever. Take these benefits. These benefits are going to make you free, except now you're indebted and enslaved by the government. You're dependent on the government. Al Gore said government is just the things we do together, but that's a lie. Like almost everything Al Gore says, government is what people with power tell us to do. That's what it is. And true freedom is being able to express your ideas. So you just see every socialist country ultimately starts to censor people. In Europe, and in England and in Ireland, there are passing these things called digital safety acts. They have these Orwellian names. Some of them have different names. But they're ostensibly to protect children. First, they say from and then they say from hate speech. So you know where they're going. In fact, they protect politicians from the opinions of the people. The New York Times says EU officials are building a case that X's handoff approach to policing user-generated content has made it a hub of illegal hate speech, disinformation, which is information that the government disagrees with, disinformation and other material that is viewed as undercutting democracy across the 27-nation bloc. So why is it Elon Musk? Well, it's Elon Musk because he let people speak. He let the people speak. And that's what the EU is trying to get them to stop doing. And the great Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, who really has just risen into greatness, he's fighting back against this and he's organizing ambassadors to lobby against it. Here's what Rubio says, cut 6.
If a country or a group of countries, in the case of the EU, although it considers itself sort of a country because these countries have, given over a significant amount of sovereignty in order to become a member of the EU, when you have foreign entities taking actions that go after Americans for speech, yes, that becomes a foreign policy irritant for the United States, and more than an irritant, it becomes an impediment in some cases to cooperate when they're going not just after a high-profile person like Elon, but anybody for that matter. I mean, I think if you extend this out, you could see it, threatening commentators, threatening people that are opining about world events.
So Glenn Reynolds, the great leader of Instapundit, who used to be called the Blog Father back when there were blogs, and he was the Blog Father, he writes a piece in the New York Post, and this is what he says. Britain's Labour government is in trouble. Its program of massive third world immigration from places like Pakistan and Somalia is wildly, overwhelmingly unpopular, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is that despite the best efforts of Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his leftist captive media, Britons themselves have discovered just how unpopular it is. He says, you might think that's absurd. If mass immigration is unpopular, how can everyone not know it? He says everyone doesn't know it because the government has been policing speech about immigration, and any criticism of open borders, lax enforcement, or worst of all, immigrant crime has been punished as racist and hate speech. The point of this isn't to reduce racism or hate, but to make it harder for people to realize just how many of their fellow citizens feel the same way they do. He says it's all to construct and maintain something known as preference falsification, a move usually practiced by authoritarian regimes. Preference falsification is where people become afraid of speaking their basic natural preferences. John Mayer is afraid to say that he doesn't find black girls attractive because he knows it's the end of his career. People don't want to say that young Muslim men should be searched twice by the TSA as they get on planes, or that Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is a DEI hire. Nobody wants to say those things, and so you begin to suspect that you're the only person who's thinking them, and you're a bad guy for thinking them, and the majority, the culture, the Overton window, the people who matter don't believe the things that you do believe when, in fact, they do. And so this is why elections have to be rigged the way that the left tries to rig them. They don't like, voter ID laws. They actually want to pass laws where people are not allowed to ask for your ID when you vote because they have to rig elections, because in elections, suddenly people are in a closed box, their vote is secret, and they say what they think, and Donald Trump becomes president. And that's what they're trying to stop. Why immigration? Immigration is amazing. Immigration is the mass immigration. People say it's about bringing in voters or replacing the whites. And I suppose there's something like that, but it's really to fund the welfare state. It's really because the welfare state from which socialist politicians draw their power by saying, we will give you this if you will give us power forever. That is basically what the welfare state is, and why it has been so destructive, and why it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until people, are not free, and their health care is now paid for by the state. And so therefore the state decides when they die, but they need people to feed the welfare state. And this comes from another attempt to deconstruct the unfairness of life because leftist feminism has made motherhood disrespected, right? Because they've told you you are, it's one of the biggest jokes in the world that people say, I'm just a mom. You give birth, which is an amazing, process and very difficult. You nurture a child into full humanity. You build a home that has its own inner government, so the people don't need to be governed from Washington. You do all these things basically that uphold the society, and you're just a mom. You're just a mom. You're just a mom. You're not a model. You're not a woman who tells the weather. You're nothing. You're a mom. I mean, it's basically the central building block of the Jenga tower of human life, especially in a free society. And they've reduced that to so women don't stop reproducing. Who wants to be the odd man out of the culture? Who wants to be the disrespected person on the culture when you could be pushing paper for a boss who doesn't care about you? Why would you be making home for a husband and children who love you? I mean, it is unbelievable. And then they don't have enough people, so they have to bring in all these immigrants who hate the culture just like they do. They hate the culture just like they do. It is funny. Capitalism has lots of things about it that are ugly. It depends on people wanting to buy stuff they don't need. It sells people stuff they don't need. It puts money gives money too high a value. But the one thing that capitalism does that really is impressive is it forces you to serve your fellow man in order to make money and serve yourself, right? That is the thing. It forces you to have to appeal to the people. Elections force you to have to appeal to the people. And that's why these socialists, these leftists, these power-hungry people hate it. They don't want to appeal to you. They want to invent the perfect world of their imagination instead of this unfair, broken, sinful world that we're actually living in. Your dog's excitement says it all. That full body tail wag, those happy little hops, and that goofy grin that means dinner is here. That's what happens when dogs taste Ollie. Other brands focus on convenience over quality. Your dog deserves better than processed kibble that sits on shelves for months. Made fresh in U.S. kitchens with human-grade ingredients, Ollie delivers clean nutrition without any fillers or preservatives. Just real food that leads to real results, more energy, shinier coats, better digestion, and genuine mealtime excitement. With 5 protein-packed recipes like fresh beef with sweet potatoes and fresh turkey with blueberries, even picky eaters dive right in. You might find yourself thinking your dog eats better than you do. And honestly, with Ollie, they probably do. I love dogs. Dogs are my favorite people. I think that God should have stopped with dogs. I don't know what he was thinking. But when I had a dog, I wanted her to have all the best. Ollie is the only fresh dog food company offering unlimited routine health screenings, helping your pup live their healthiest, happiest life. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/Klavan. Tell them all about your dog and use code Klavan to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/KLAVAN and enter code Klavan to get 60% off your first box. Teach your dog to spell it in case you're not home. Chapter 3, Murder as Self-Expression. So, how the left is always saying silence is violence, which means say what we want you to say or we will destroy you, right? If you can't just keep silent. I mean, they do this to Hollywood stars all the time. Why haven't you attacked Donald Trump? If you want to make movies, you better attack Donald Trump. But the left thinks actual violence is great. They think, silence is violence, language is violence, words are violence, thoughts are violence. But violence, no, they love violence. You remember this horrible story in New York where this guy, obviously with some kind of mental damage, walked into a Park Avenue, a famous Park Avenue office building with a rifle and started opening fire and had left a letter saying he was angry at the NFL because he had been a high school football player and he felt that a concussion had ruined his brain. And he opened fire and, of course, he kills 4 totally innocent people who were lovely people. And one of them was this woman, Wesley LePatner, who was I think the highest ranking female in a company called Blackstone, a real estate business. And she's a mom. She has 2 children. She has a husband who loved her, obviously very upset. And this is the kind of, and once again, crazy people take to TikTok, and this is the kind of thing that they're saying. This is cut 7.
Blackstone CEO Wesley LePatner was murked in Manhattan yesterday. Wesley's company is responsible for buying up thousands of single-family homes across America in order to artificially inflate the price, pricing many Americans out of the option of owning a home. So I really only have one thing to say about her and her tragic death. Ha ha! Ha ha, you don't. What does karma taste like?
What does karma taste like? And by the way, it wasn't just crazy women like that. It was people. There was Maya Sulkin was writing in the Free Press, and said that let's name him, Thomas Gebremedin, a high-ranking editor at Penguin Random House, reposted a story on Instagram arguing that her sole job was making sure housing is expensive and that we all have to rent for the rest of our lives. Now, this company, I don't have to explain this to you, but this company does not set prices for housing. I mean, the prices for housing are set by need. A lot of times it's leftist policies limiting housing that make housing so expensive. And then what they do is they say, well, the rents are not allowed to go up, and then nobody builds buildings because they can't make any money off them, and then the housing is even harder to get than before. That's the problem. One of the problems they have in New York. This idea, though, that murdering somebody is somehow a way to express an idea is evil. I mean, I wrote that book, The Kingdom of Cain, saying that art about murder is interesting because it explores evil. But this is evil. It is evil to celebrate this, like this guy Luigi Mangione, who murdered the CEO of a health insurance company, and all these people are celebrating it, saying it's great because health insurance is terrible, and all this as if it were this guy's fault. Again, a father of 2 children. And, Theodore Dalrymple is a great writer, and he was a prison psychiatrist, and now he writes for City Journal. I discovered him in England because he's English, and I was reading his stuff there. But he was, talking about these celebrations, and he says, the world will always offer pretexts for political violence, for the world as it is will always be a disappointment by comparison with an imagined perfection or even mere betterment. So the imagination is so important, because if you imagine a world that is not, right, if you imagine the world could be what it will never be, you feel justified in killing innocent people. These are innocent people who are being killed. I mean, obviously the words innocent people are oxymorons because no people are innocent. But if that's true, then everybody should be killed. And since we've been forgiven by our God, I don't think that's the way it should go. It's an amazing thing how when you talk about the imagination, people think you're talking about, imagining fairies and going to the movies. No, it's like this is the domain of morality. This is the domain of spirituality. This is where we perceive what our other senses can't perceive, and it needs to be trained, and it needs to be taught, and it needs to be questioned, because we never know. We're always seeing through a glass darkly. We never see face to face until we die and stand before God. We're only seeing things that we are not sure of, and so we have to be humble. We have to be ready to change our minds. We have to read our Gospels. We have to go to church and temple and understand what the rituals mean and all this. And this is how you train your imagination. And you read novels, you watch movies, you go to the arts to find out what's true and what's beautiful. And when you see something that's ugly in the arts, what does it mean? One of the ugliest things to me in American society is the use of violence, of murder especially, as a political tool, even by people who don't commit the murders. So, for instance, the press is a perfect example. A murder takes place, and if it's because somebody kills somebody because he's a homophobe, immediately the problem is homophobia. It's not being nice to gay people. But if he's a tranny and he kills a Christian because they're Christians, as happened in Nashville, then we hide the motive and we never release the person's manifesto, and we blame guns, because it always comes down to the left governing who will be the voice of the dead. That's essentially it. Who will be the voice of the dead? And it's disgusting. And if you want to see it at its most disgusting, why not go to our old friend, Jim? I'm Jim. Look at me. I'm Jim Acosta. I mean, it is amazing. This is an amazing thing. This may be one. It's hard to say that the press has hit rock bottom. Acosta is another casualty of our victory over the culture. I think he's now on YouTube instead of CNN. He interviewed, and I'm not making this up, I wish I were making this up, he interviewed an AI version of a 17-year-old boy who was killed in the Parkland school shooting in 2018. And they made an AI replica of him. Now, his parents made the AI replica of him, and of course, I don't blame them at all. And they can make the AI replica of him if that makes their heart feel better, and if they want to use it to support their political views, I have no complaint. That is their right to use their grief in that way, essentially, is their grief speaking. But for Jim Acosta to interview, listen to this portion of an interview with an AI recreation of a dead 17-year-old. This is cut 8.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea, Joaquin.
God. And again, Joaquin's father built this thing. He wants to express his opinions through the image of his dead son. But remember, that's just the image of his dead son. This is the thing. This is when I talk about colonizing the imagination, that's what this is. And again, the grieving father can do anything he wants. But for Jim Acosta to talk to this person like he's actually getting an opinion instead of a machine's, constructed voice, it's a metaphor for what the leftist news media became. It is a perfect metaphor, especially in dealing with murder. They speak for the dead. They presume to speak for the dead unless the dead are saying something that they don't like, and then they silence the dead. And you know what? They want to do the same thing to you. That's what the censorship is all about. They want to speak for you, and if you won't say what they want you to say, they want to silence you. It is what all of this is about, because in spite of what young people think, the world is an imperfect place. It will continue to be an imperfect place. Women will continue to be like women. Men will continue to be like men. This is going to happen forever. And when it stops happening, we won't be human anymore, and it won't be worth the change. It's funny. This is where the battle lines are being drawn for the culture of tomorrow. And it's a thing we have to keep asking ourselves is, how do we present our case so that basically these people fade away? If you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, do not wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast, 5% per month, up to 25%. That's just for not filing. But there is help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or haven't filed in years. Messy books aren't a problem. They've seen it all. They know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll get a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help protect you from wage garnishments or bank levies. So don't wait for the next IRS letter. Call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Klavan to talk to real experts at Tax Network USA. Take the pressure off. Let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues. And please, learn how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan. There are no E's in Klavan. I just make it look this easy. Final chapter, and now a word from the devil. So the people who are doing this the best are the Islamists, Hamas, basically the Iranians. And the reason they're doing it the best is because they're playing into a deep, deep strain in Western culture of anti-Semitism. And you know what I think about anti-Semitism. You know I think that it is, in fact, the hatred of God and the hatred of Christ, because Christ is the Jew who brought the Jewish God to the Gentiles. That's essentially what happened. And I have written articles and read pieces on the air showing you people like Nietzsche and Wagner and Schopenhauer blaming the Jews for polluting German culture with Jesus and their philosophy. They're for polluting German Aryan culture with Jewishness through Jesus. I mean, that's basically where this hatred comes from and why it runs so deep and why it never goes away and why it has no home. It doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you listen to what the anti-Semites on the right are saying, they are saying exactly the same thing as the anti-Semites on the left. They all have the exact same opinions because it's not about what's right. It's about how much they hate the Jews. And so they put out these pictures of starving Gazan children, starving children in Gaza. And, you know, the war is war and it's terrible. Tom Cotton, good for Senator Tom Cotton. He is like fearless, that guy. He is an actual person who could run for president in the wake of MAGA after Donald Trump is finished with his term. Tom Cotton is a guy who would make a really interesting presidential candidate. And he stood up in the Senate and he said, no one in history has ever been asked to feed the nation that attacked it without provocation. Only Israel is being tasked with doing this. As he points out, we blockaded the Japanese and the German during World War II and made their life much, much harder to get food. And here's what he says on the Senate floor, cut 9.
Put simply, Israel doesn't have any responsibility to send a single loaf of bread to Gaza. I wonder why so many senators, pundits, podcasters, and European politicians impose this unique standard on the Jewish nation. Why could it be? But despite all that, despite the brutal slaughter of nearly 1,200 Israelis on October 7th, despite Hamas's continued repression of its own people, Israel is still delivering aid to Gaza, while Hamas rips it from the hands of hungry children.
So ask yourself the same question Tom Cotton is asking. Ask yourself, why is it when civilizations in the West die, they die in a flame of anti-Semitism? You know, Hitler didn't just destroy himself and Germany, he destroyed all of Europe. He destroyed he was the end of Europe. But why do you think Europe died in this conflagration of anti-Semitism? It is because Jesus Christ is the center of the Western idea. I mean, Jesus Christ is the reinvention of the Western idea in his own image, and he is a Jew, and what he brought to the world is essentially a Jewish idea. And, you know, you can tell yourself all you want that whatever church you belong to, the Catholic Church, whatever, has replaced the Jews. God does not break his promises. Isaiah says to Israel, all who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all, for I am the Lord, your God, the Jewish God. You know, and I know I go after Tucker Carlson. The reason I go after Tucker Carlson is I know he has gotten in to J.D. Vance. And you know, Donald Trump said this week that he thought J.D. Vance was a front runner for his replacement. And I listen, I love the stuff that J.D. Vance says. I'm worried about the stuff that J.D. Vance doesn't say. I do not know who he is. And when Tucker Carlson talks, he talks nonsense. You know, I found this clip of him discussing nuclear weapons. Let's just play a little bit of this. Let's play cut 10.
Not since we dropped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki, the second one in August of 1945, and decided that we were gods, and the God himself no longer existed. Since then, we have been a secular society, and that's why we're now being destroyed, in my view. I care about this country and what happened to it after 1945, and it's a very clear demarcation line, and it seems obvious to me that nuclear weapons are demonic. There's no upside to them at all, and that anyone who claims otherwise is either ignorant or doing the bidding of the forces that created nuclear technology in the first place, which are not human forces, obviously. And let me just ask you this, which I've asked a million people at dinner parties, but never in public. What was the moment we can point to that nuclear technology was invented? You know, we can point to Isaac Newton and say, what apple fell on his head? Or we can point to Albert Hoffman in his lab messing around with the, ergot bacteria. That's when LSD was made. I've never met a person who can isolate the moment where nuclear technology became known to man.
Now, see, all of that is just untrue. I mean, first of all, an apple never fell on Newton's head. That's a myth because people want to place these discoveries in a moment in time. But in 1905, when Albert Einstein discovered that E equals mc squared, he brought the world into the nuclear age. I'm not sure of the thought process that Einstein went through because only one of us is Einstein, and I think it's the one named Einstein, not me. I've read his book about it, and I still didn't understand it. I mean, the guy was like Einstein, he was brilliant. But that was the moment. That was the moment. And the bombing of Nagasaki, which Tucker has repeatedly insinuated was some kind of Jewish plot because there was a cathedral there and many of Japan's Catholics lived on Nagasaki. The pilot who dropped the bomb was a Catholic. He was flying to a different target. The target was covered over by fog and smoke, and so he couldn't hit it, and he came back, and the cathedral point broke through the cloud cover, so he bombed Nagasaki instead. That was a secondary target. You can say some demon arranged for that to happen. There are invisible forces in the world. I think we all know that. But he doesn't say that. He says there are physical demons. They look, they're basically human beings. And who do we think he's talking about? This is what I mean. The imagination, the battleground of the imagination is like littered with the bodies of the leftist media and the minds of the Academy and Hollywood. And now we're fighting for it. We're gathering to fight for it. And we on the right, if we let people like that, who talk nonsense like that and mythology like that, if we let them take over the right, we're going to lose because Americans are not going to go for that. And if they go for it, they'll go for it for a little while and then they will toss it aside. We want to remind them about freedom. And this takes humility, especially when we're talking about spiritual matters. One of my favorite moments of interviewing people was the great Ian McGilchrist was here a few weeks ago. Wonderful interview, wonderful man. His writing is just terrific. And he quoted what is one of my favorite lines in all of literature, which is the first line of the Tao Te Ching, which is a book of immense wisdom. It's very close to the gospel reading, the Tao Te Ching, but it begins, the Tao means the way. And the first line is, the way that can be spoken is not the way. What a great line. And McGilchrist said, it's ineffable, right? Which means it can't be spoken. He said, it's ineffable. It can't be effed. But the reason you can't speak about the way is because it is unlimited. It is infinite, and words limit things. And so you have to have some humility. Our words are rough tools that we use to, and our arts and our kindness are ways we communicate the way to people. And if you fall in love with the words, if you fall in love with the doctrines, if you become small-minded and technocratic about it, you actually squeeze the life out of the words. That's why Jesus was constantly rewriting the Bible, saying, yeah, Moses said that about divorce, but let me tell you about divorce, saying, yes, you shouldn't commit adultery, but I will not condemn you. I am not going to condemn you because no one is without sin. These are the things that we have to keep in our heart. We have to keep that love in our heart. I was recently rereading for the 100th time the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, which is about a demon teaching another demon how to steal a soul, right? And he says to this demon, there's going to be some benevolence as well as some malice in your patient's soul. The patient is the person he's trying to corrupt. He says the great thing, the important thing for a demon to do is to direct the malice to his immediate neighbors whom he meets every day and to thrust his benevolence out to the remote circumference to people he does not know. The malice thus becomes wholly real and the benevolence becomes largely imaginary. That is socialism in a nutshell. Who is it who sells you benevolence to the world? It's socialism. And who is it who demonizes anyone who disagrees with them and treats your neighbor like crap because he doesn't agree with you or because he likes Sydney Sweeney or for whatever reason he's not wearing a mask during COVID, whatever it is, it's the socialists. They love the world. They hate their neighbors. And that's why I'm always telling you the left attacks on the big scale. You have to fight on a personal level. Each one of you is bearing the culture in his hand like a candle and has to pass it on, not to the world, world, but to your wife, to your husband, your children, your neighbors. You have to show them. You have to show them what the way is, because it can't be spoken. And you can't do it by cursing at them if they don't say Christ is king, and you can't do it if they don't belong to your church but belong to another church. You have to show them that love. You have to live it out. It's what William Wordsworth said, one of his greatest lines. He said, the best portion of a good man's life is his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. It's not the famous. It is the people on the street. It's you. It's me. It's everybody who treats everybody the way Christ wants them to treat them that spreads the word. You know, there's another Lewis line. Every time you make a choice, you are turning the central part of you, the part that chooses your soul, into something a little different than what it was before. Every time you make a choice, you are remolding your soul and taking your life as a whole with all your innumerable choices all your life long. You are slowly turning this central thing into a heavenly creature or into a hellish creature. See, he knew it's not, we always represent evil in the movies as serial killers or a big demon who comes out and makes you smile as he blows your head apart or whatever. That's symbolism. That's metaphor. There's nothing wrong with telling those great stories. I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying that's not what evil is. It's the little things you do. It's the way you make your wife feel like garbage because she got something wrong. It's the way you make your husband feel like nothing because he didn't say the words you wanted to hear. It's the way you destroy your children when you get divorced and you blow their planet apart. The people who are going to save the world through murder and through censorship and through screaming at people and ruining their career, what are they turning into? That's the question. And then the question is, what are you going to turn into when you win the culture back? All right, I may take my grandson fishing. I used to fish all the time. I almost used to fish every day. There was a point in my life when I fished every day. One of my favorite fishing expeditions was in Alaska, where I caught halibut, which is not a great fighting fish, but it does taste good. And I miss that. But that's why I use Wild Alaskan Company's fish. They knock it out of the park. They deliver the best wild-caught seafood straight to your home. Each portion is perfectly sized, 6-ounce portions, packed with nutrients you won't find in regular store-bought fish. And once you taste the difference, you will never go back. Their fish is 100% wild-caught, never farmed, which means you're getting pure seafood with no antibiotics, GMOs, or additives. These pristine fish support both healthy oceans and fishing communities while delivering exceptional flavor. I've been eating them. I really like them. Plus, each catch is flash frozen right on the boat to preserve its natural taste, texture, and beneficial omega-3s. When you join Wild Alaskan Company, you're not just getting extraordinary seafood, you're supporting sustainable harvesting practices in Alaska while enjoying flexible deliveries and expert cooking guidance that makes every meal special. Not all fish are the same. Get seafood you can trust. Go to wildalaskan.com/Klavan for $35 off your first box of premium wild-caught seafood. That's wildalaskan.com/ how do you spell it? Klavan. You'll get $35 off your first order. And thank you to Wild Alaskan Company for sponsoring this episode. There is a lot coming to DailyWire Plus, and it's not inclusive, it's not safe, it's not moderated by NPR, so you will love it. On August 13th, the Pope and the Fuhrer unburies the lie they hope we'd never fact-check. It exposes how Pope Pius XII didn't stay silent during World War II, and now the Vatican's receipts are wide open. This fall, Isabel Brown's new show joins the lineup alongside the most trusted voices in conservative media and myself. All of them are ad-free, uncensored, with live chat, so you're not just watching, you're part of the conversation. We built this because no one else would. Now it's yours too. Go to dailywire.com and become a member today. Klavan Klapbacks.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. Yeah!
I don't know how that got in there. All right. Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. Klavan with a K. Klapbacks with a K at dailywire.com. Ask anything you want. Personal life, political, spiritual, whatever you want to ask me, I will answer if I can. Logan says, I have waited years to ask this question. Years ago, going down a Rotten Tomatoes rabbit hole, I came across the page for one missed call. It is currently sitting at a sterling 0% Rotten Tomatoes score. I have read When Christmas Comes, and it's clear you take a great pride in your craft as a wordsmith and storyteller. Since you are the listed screenwriter on this masterpiece, I have to ask what happened. That's actually an interesting story. I can't tell the whole thing, but basically, there were a bunch of very nice, some talented people, all of whom were making a different movie. That is what happened. I wrote, it was a late stage J-horror, Japanese horror story about a haunted cell phone. And I kind of wrote it ironically. I wrote it a little bit like maybe Scream would be a model of where I was kind of making fun of the genre, but also practicing the genre at the same time. The director came in, and he was a French guy, lovely guy, but he was a deeply serious art filmmaker, and he wanted to make this gory body horror that was just ripping people, just absolutely disgusting eyeballs and things like, the whole thing. Meanwhile, the studio was a kind of family-oriented studio, and the production company, and they wanted to make a kind of fun, one-by-one, kind of like Final Destination thriller for young people. So the director hired the biggest cast of the most serious arty actors. At one point, he had a chance. I remember he called me up. I was recording a book in Michigan, and he called me up, and he said he was suicidal. He said, I'm going to commit. They want me to hire Carrie Russell. She is a Cupid doll. And I said, she's actually a great actress, and she's beautiful. Because in these movies, you want to see some pretty girls wearing kind of flimsy outfits. That's part of horror movie lore and all this stuff. And instead, he got all his actresses. They were all lovely people, but they were all dressed in like baggy shirts and all this stuff. And he lost Carrie Russell as one of our just a terrific and appealing actress. And then the studio wouldn't let him make any of the violent stuff he wanted to make, and the actors were reading my script as if it was the most serious thing ever without any irony whatsoever. It's funny, if you watch the movie, now and again, you can hear my voice in it. You can hear my sense of irony in it. But so basically, the funny thing is the movie was a hit. I'm getting, it must have come out like 20 years ago. I'm making residuals from it to this day. I made a fortune off that film, and it was actually a hit, and actually people like it. But Rotten Tomatoes, the reviews were so bad, they wouldn't even make a sequel, thank God, because they were just humiliated by it. Anyway, that's kind of what happened. From Anonymous. After 26 years of marriage, my wife and I still struggle to have a healthy sex life. We enjoy the physical act of sex and the emotional and spiritual intimacy. However, my wife, who was abused as a child, frequently asks me to be more verbal, but praise and interaction, to give her praise and interaction to help keep her busy mind off the 101 things she has to do, and also to prevent flashbacks to her abuse in the past. I have made improvements over time in complimenting her throughout the day, but during sex, my mind usually goes blank. Do you have any advice or resources you could recommend to help me be a better lover in the communication department? Yeah, this is a very complicated question, and I can't really answer it completely. But here's the thing. A married couple should make love enough so that they can sometimes focus on what one person wants and sometimes focus on what the other person wants. They should do different things. And if her abuse is in her way, she should get some therapy. You might even want to get some couples therapy. But, that kind of trauma can be dealt with in shorter order. It's not like you have to go into your past and explore everything. There's all kinds of therapies for that. That might help her out. The trauma might be restricting her. And as for you, don't go blank all the time. Sometimes go blank and sometimes don't go blank. This is something that is between the two of you. You are one flesh. You have a right and duty to both enjoy one another and to give pleasure to one another. And so, you should be making love often enough where sometimes you can do what she wants and sometimes she can do what you want. But also you should be cleaning up some of this detritus in your head. And I can't give a fuller answer than that. It's something that very obviously, sexuality is a very difficult thing to talk about and very difficult to explore. But still, generosity and love between you, and you both enjoy the actual physical act, clean up the things that are getting in your way by using a therapist and doing the things that it takes to get over that stuff, and also serve each other as you make love at different times. One serves one and one serves the other, and and be generous and love one another. Hopefully that'll help. Let me know if it does. I have got to stop there, which means plunging non-members into a darkness beyond your wildest imagination, your darkest imagination. The Klavanlessness of the week ahead looms over you like a great looming Klavanlessness that is looming. So you will want to become a member, and you can do that by going to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. If you do that right now, you can come over to Member Block. If you don't, fare thee well. But for members, come over to Member Block.